The sound of my phone broke through the silence of the afternoon. It was Ethan, his voice bubbling with excitement. "Hey. Want to join me and Oliver for a gaming session?" I hesitated for a moment. My daily routine was predictable, filled with chores and the mundane. But there was something in Ethan's tone, a spark of energy that pulled me in. "Sure, I'll be right there," I replied, pushing aside the laundry that had been waiting for me. As I walked into the kitchen, I found Oliver leaning against the counter, his presence magnetic. He looked up and smiled, a smile that sent a jolt through me. Why had I never noticed how captivating he was? The room felt charged, buzzing with an energy I didn't understand. "Ready to lose?" he teased, his eyes glinting with mischief. I laughed, trying to hide the flutter in my chest. "In your dreams." We settled into our game, laughter filling the air. But as I glanced at Oliver, I noticed something deeper in his gaze. It was as if he was searching for something in me. I could feel the chemistry brewing, a tension that made my heart race. I had been so focused on my life, my responsibilities, that I hadn't realized how lonely I had become. Was I really just a spectator in my own life? "Come on, focus," Ethan shouted, pulling me back to the game. I shot him a playful glare, but my mind was elsewhere. Oliver's laughter rang in my ears, a sound that felt both intoxicating and terrifying. What was happening to me? The lines of friendship began to blur, and I found myself drawn to Oliver in a way I had never expected. Then it happened, our eyes met for a brief moment. Time seemed to freeze. In that instant, an unspoken bond formed between us, a connection that left me breathless. It was exhilarating and frightening all at once. I quickly looked away, my heart pounding in my chest. What was I feeling? Was it wrong to feel this way about him? "Hey, are you okay?" Ethan's voice cut through my thoughts. I forced a smile, but I could feel the heat rising to my cheeks. "Yeah, just thinking about the game." I tried to deflect, but I could sense the concern in Ethan's eyes. Did he see the flicker of something between Oliver and me? Oliver leaned in closer, his shoulder brushing against mine, and my breath caught in my throat. "You're really good at this," he said, his voice low and sincere. I could feel my heart race again. Was he flirting with me? I swallowed hard, trying to focus on the screen, but all I could think about was the closeness of his body, the warmth radiating from him. The game continued, but my mind was a whirlwind of emotions. I had come here for a distraction, but I found something much more complicated. I felt exhilarated yet terrified, a mix of guilt and excitement swirling within me. I had a family, a life that I had built, and yet here I was, captivated by someone I shouldn't be thinking about this way. "Hey, are you two going to play or just stare at each other?" Ethan joked, breaking the tension. I forced a laugh, but it felt hollow. How could I explain the chaos inside me? "Let's play," I said, trying to regain my composure, but the moment lingered in the air, a reminder of the dangerous attraction that simmered beneath the surface. As the afternoon faded into evening, I realized that this gaming session was more than just a way to pass the time. It was a spark that ignited something deep within me, something I had buried for far too long. What would I do with these feelings? Could I face the consequences of what was brewing between us? The lines had blurred, and now I was left with more questions than answers. The laughter of Ethan and Oliver filled the room, a joyful sound that seemed to wrap around me like a warm blanket. But beneath the surface, I felt a tension building, a struggle that pulled at my heart. As I watched them play, I couldn't help but think about the innocent friendship they once had. Their bond had been so simple, so pure. But now, it felt like there was something more at stake. "Hey, remember when we used to play those old-school games?" Ethan asked, grinning as he knocked Oliver's character out of the game. "We were unstoppable back then." Oliver laughed, his eyes sparkling with nostalgia. "Yeah, those were the days. We thought we were pros, but we were just kids." I smiled at their banter, but my mind drifted. Was this how it always was? just laughter and games? Or was it something deeper now? I glanced at Oliver, and my heart raced. He was so easy to be around, yet so complicated. I found myself questioning everything: my feelings, my loyalty, and my family. As the game continued, I felt a knot in my stomach. Was I betraying my family by enjoying this too much? I loved Ethan. He was my husband, my partner. But with Oliver, everything felt different. The laughter and the teasing were fun, but there was an undercurrent of something intense, something I couldn't ignore. Do you guys remember that time we stayed up all night playing? Ethan said, chuckling. We were so tired the next day, but it was worth it. Totally worth it. Oliver replied, his eyes shining with the memory. I think we beat every game we had. I couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy at their shared memories. I wanted to be a part of that, to share those moments with Oliver. But I felt like an intruder in their friendship, an outsider looking in. The more time I spent with them, the more I craved Oliver's attention. Hey, Oliver, I said, trying to push the thoughts away. What's your favorite game? He turned to me, a spark of excitement in his eyes. Oh, that's easy. I love strategy games. They make you think and plan. It's all about outsmarting your opponent. Sounds intense, I replied, forcing a smile. I'm more of a casual player myself. Casual players are the best. They keep it fun, Oliver said, his voice warm and inviting. I could feel my heart flutter at his words. But then, in a sudden shift, Oliver's expression changed. He became serious, and I could see a vulnerability in his eyes. You know, I never thought I would find someone who understood me like this, he said, glancing between Ethan and me. I felt a chill run down my spine. What did he mean by that? Was he talking about me? I glanced at Ethan, who was focused on the game, blissfully unaware of the weight of Oliver's words. I wanted to scream, to run away from this moment, but I was frozen in place. What do you mean? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Oliver took a deep breath, as if gathering his thoughts. I've been through a lot. It's hard to find people who really get you. His eyes locked onto mine, and I felt a connection that was impossible to ignore. I'm glad I have you guys. The air was thick with unspoken feelings, and I could feel the tension rising. I wanted to comfort him, to tell him that he wasn't alone, but I was terrified of crossing a line I couldn't uncross. I had to tread carefully. Ethan, sensing the shift, chimed in, "We're always here for you, man. No matter what." He smiled, but I could see a hint of concern in his expression. "Thanks, Ethan," Oliver said, a grateful smile returning to his face. But the moment lingered, filling the space between us with a charge I couldn't ignore. As the night wore on, I struggled with my feelings. The laughter and fun were overshadowed by a growing awareness of the complexity of our situation. I was caught in a web of emotions, questioning everything I thought I knew about loyalty and love. Could I navigate this new territory without hurting anyone? The thought lingered in my mind, heavy and unsettling. I felt like I was playing a game where the rules were constantly changing, and I had no idea how to win. That night, the house was quiet except for the soft hum of the gaming console. Ethan was working late, and the stillness wrapped around me like a heavy blanket. I had promised myself I would keep my feelings for Oliver at bay. But as the minutes ticked by, the pull toward him became harder to resist. The thrill of our connection whispered to me, tempting me to cross a line I never imagined I would. I glanced at my phone, the glowing screen illuminating my face. I had received a message from Oliver earlier, asking if we could talk. My heart raced at the thought of being alone with him, and I felt a mix of excitement and fear. What would we talk about? Would it be safe? Or would it lead to something I couldn't take back? Finally, I gave in to the urge. I grabbed my phone and typed a quick reply, *sure, come over. Ethan is working late, *, my fingers trembled as I pressed send. The anticipation was electric. When Oliver arrived, the air felt charged. He entered with that easy smile that made my heart flutter. "Hey," he said, his voice brightening the dim room. "Thanks for having me over." "Of course," I replied, trying to sound casual. "I thought we could play a game or just talk." He nodded, but I could see the seriousness in his eyes. "I was hoping we could talk. I need to share something with you." My heart sank at his words. "Okay," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "What's on your mind?" We sat on the couch, the space between us charged with unspoken tension. I could feel my pulse quickening as he looked at me, his gaze intense. "I've been feeling something different between us. I can't ignore it anymore." His words sent a shiver down my spine. I wanted to deny it, to pretend it wasn't real, but deep down, I knew he was right. "I feel it too," I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. "But this is complicated." Oliver leaned closer, his expression softening. "I know. But I can't help how I feel. You mean a lot to me." In that moment, I felt a rush of emotions, excitement battling with guilt. "Ethan is my husband," I reminded him, my voice trembling. "I can't betray him like that." "I understand," Oliver said, his eyes filled with sincerity. "But it doesn't change what's between us. I can't stop thinking about you." I was torn. My heart raced at his confession, but my mind screamed at me to pull back. "This isn't right," I said, shaking my head. "We can't do this." But as I spoke the words, a part of me wanted to lean into the feelings, to give in to the thrill of it all. The attraction was undeniable, and the chemistry between us felt like a powerful force. I could feel the weight of our connection pressing down on me. Suddenly, my phone buzzed on the table. I reached for it, my heart sinking as I saw Ethan's name on the screen. He had sent a text, just finished up. "On my way home, Panic surged through me. "Oliver, I can't, Ethan is coming back," I said, my voice rising in urgency. "We need to stop this now." He nodded, but I could see the conflict in his eyes. "You're right. We shouldn't be doing this." The tension in the room shifted as reality hit us both. I felt a wave of dread wash over me. What had we just done? The thrill was quickly overshadowed by fear. My thoughts spiraled as I realized the weight of our actions. "Maybe we should just forget this happened," I suggested, my voice trembling. "For the sake of everyone involved." Oliver looked hurt, and I hated that I had to say it. "I don't want to forget," he replied quietly. "But I don't want to hurt you or Ethan either." The door creaked open, and my heart dropped as I heard Ethan's footsteps in the hallway. "I'll see you later," I whispered to Oliver, my voice shaking as I pushed him toward the door. "We can't let him find out." He nodded, and in that moment, I felt the weight of what we were hiding. I closed the door behind him, my heart racing as dread settled in my stomach. I had crossed a line, and now I would have to face the consequences. Ethan walked in, smiling, completely unaware of the turmoil that had just unfolded. "Hey, how was your evening?" he asked, his eyes bright with love. "Just fine," I replied, forcing a smile, my heart heavy with secrets. But deep down, I knew that my world had shifted irrevocably. The delicate balance between desire and responsibility was beginning to crumble, and I was terrified of what lay ahead. Days passed, and the weight of guilt hung over me like a dark cloud. Each time Ethan walked into the room, it felt as if a dagger pierced my heart. His smile, bright and warm, only deepened my sense of betrayal. I could see the trust in his eyes, and it made my stomach turn. How could I look him in the face when I was hiding something so huge? "Hey, are you okay?" Ethan asked one afternoon, his brow furrowed with concern as he sat next to me on the couch. "You seem a bit off." I forced a smile, trying to mask the turmoil inside. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just a little tired from work," I replied, hoping my voice didn't shake. I felt like a fraud. He smiled, oblivious to my internal struggle. Well, if you need to talk or want to play a game later, just let me know. Sure, that sounds good, I said, my heart racing. The idea of spending time with him felt both comforting and suffocating. How could I enjoy those moments when I was hiding such a big secret? As the days went by, Oliver's presence haunted me. I could still feel the intensity of our last conversation, the way his eyes searched mine for answers. Every time I thought of him, a rush of emotions flooded my mind: excitement, guilt, fear. He was a constant reminder of the chaos I had invited into my life. One evening, as I washed the dishes, my thoughts drifted back to Oliver. I remembered the way his voice trembled as he confessed his feelings. I couldn't shake the image of him leaning closer, the warmth of his breath against my skin. It was thrilling, yet terrifying. I knew I had to make a choice, but the thought of confessing to Ethan felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. I glanced over at Ethan, who was engrossed in his phone. He looked so happy, so unaware. I felt a sharp pang of guilt. What if I shattered that happiness? What if I destroyed everything? Later that night, I found myself sitting on the edge of our bed, staring into the darkness. I heard Ethan's soft breathing beside me, and I felt a wave of sadness wash over me. I wanted to be honest. I wanted to tell him everything. But what if it broke him? What if it broke us? Are you sure you're okay? Ethan's voice broke through my thoughts. He turned to me, concern etched on his face. You can talk to me about anything, you know that, right? I nodded, my throat tight. I know. It's just a lot on my mind. Do you want to share? He asked gently, reaching for my hand. I'm here for you. His touch sent a shock through me, and I pulled away slightly, feeling the weight of my secret pressing down harder. I just don't want to burden you with my worries, I replied, forcing a smile. It's nothing, really. Ethan's expression softened. You could never be a burden to me. I love you. I love you too, I whispered, but the words felt heavy. How could I say that when my heart was torn in two? As I lay in bed that night, sleep eluded me. I kept replaying Oliver's words, the way he had looked at me, the way he made me feel alive. But every time I thought of him, I was reminded of the life I had built with Ethan. The innocence of our love felt fragile, like glass on the edge of a table, ready to shatter at any moment. The next day, with each passing hour, the urge to confess grew stronger. I could no longer ignore the reality of my situation. The thought of carrying this burden for much longer felt unbearable. But as I considered my options, fear gripped me. Did I really want to risk everything? Would telling the truth make things better or worse? I found myself at a crossroads, battling with the decision of whether to keep my secret or come clean. I could feel the stakes rising, and I knew that whichever path I chose could lead to irreversible damage. I had to think of Ethan, of our family, but the pull of my feelings for Oliver was relentless. As I stood by the window, watching the sunlight filter through the trees, I realized I was living a lie. I had to make a choice soon, but the weight of that decision felt like a heavy stone in my chest. The lines between love and loyalty were blurring, and I was terrified of where it would all lead. The weight of my secret pressed down on me like an anchor, dragging me deeper into a sea of anxiety. Every day felt like a new battle, and the nights were the worst. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment with Oliver and Ethan. The guilt twisted in my stomach, making it hard to breathe. One evening, I found myself sitting at the kitchen table, my hands trembling around a cup of tea. Ethan walked in, his presence filling the room with warmth. He smiled at me, but I could only manage a weak smile in return. Hey, you okay? He asked again, concern filling his voice. Yeah, just a little tired, I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. Ethan pulled out a chair and sat across from me. You've been saying that a lot lately. Is there something on your mind? You can talk to me, you know. A part of me wanted to pour my heart out, to tell him about Oliver and the feelings that were tearing me apart. But the thought of hurting him was unbearable. So, I shook my head. It's nothing, really. Just some work stress. He nodded but didn't look convinced. If you're sure. Just remember, I'm here for you. As he spoke, I felt a pang of guilt stab at my heart. I wanted to be the wife he deserved, but I was slipping away from him, tangled in my own lies. The days turned into a blur of forced smiles and hidden truths. I went through the motions of daily life, but inside, I was a storm of emotions. Every laugh we shared felt like a betrayal to my own heart. I could see the love in his eyes, and it made me want to scream. Then came the night that pushed me to my breaking point. After another long day, I stood in the living room, staring out the window as the sun set. The sky was painted with shades of orange and pink, but all I saw was darkness. "Why are you standing there alone?" Ethan asked, breaking the silence as he walked up behind me. I turned to face him, my heart racing. "Just thinking," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "About what?" he pressed, concern etched on his face. I hesitated, the words caught in my throat. "Just life, I guess." "Life can be tough," he said softly, stepping closer. "But we're in this together, right?" I nodded, but the truth hung heavy between us. "Yeah, together." As he reached for my hand, I felt the warmth of his touch, but it only deepened my internal struggle. "I love you, you know that," he said, looking into my eyes. "I love you too," I managed to say, but the words felt hollow. I was lying to him, and I couldn't keep doing it. That night, as I lay in bed, the darkness closed in around me. I felt trapped in a web of my own making. I had to confront my actions. The thought of running away from the truth felt like a coward's choice. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of determination. I couldn't keep living this lie. I had to face it, no matter how painful it would be. After breakfast, I sat at the table, my heart pounding in my chest. I could feel the walls closing in around me. "Ethan," I started, my voice shaking. He looked up from his phone, his brow furrowed. "What's wrong?" "I need to talk to you about something important," I said, my heart racing. His expression shifted to concern. "Okay, I'm listening." I took a deep breath, knowing this moment would change everything. "I've been feeling confused lately. There's something I haven't told you." "Just tell me," he urged gently, his eyes searching mine. The weight of my secret felt heavier than ever, but I knew I had to find the courage to speak. I've been struggling with my feelings for Oliver," I confessed, the words spilling out like a dam breaking. Ethan's face fell, and I could see the hurt in his eyes. "What do you mean?" "I didn't mean for this to happen," I rushed to explain. "But there's been a connection, and it's been tearing me apart." The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. I could see the pain in his eyes, and it shattered my heart into a million pieces. "I never wanted to hurt you," I whispered, tears streaming down my cheeks. I felt lost. Ethan looked away, his expression a mix of shock and betrayal. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "I was scared," I admitted, my voice breaking. Scared of what it would do to us. As the reality of my confession settled in, I felt a mix of relief and dread. I had taken the first step toward honesty, but I knew the road ahead would be painful. The weight of my choices was heavy, and I could only hope that somehow, we would find a way through the darkness together. The morning light filtered through the kitchen window, casting a soft glow that felt both comforting and cruel. I sat at the table, my heart racing as I replayed the conversation with Ethan in my mind. I had finally spoken the truth, but the weight of my confession hung heavily in the air. Ethan was silent, lost in thought. I could see the hurt in his eyes, and it made me ache inside. The room felt tense, charged with emotions we had both been holding back. "Do you want some coffee?" I asked, trying to break the silence that felt like a thick fog around us. "No, thanks," he replied quietly, still staring at the table. I could sense that he was processing everything I had just shared. I took a deep breath, my hands trembling as I wrapped them around my mug. I know this is a lot to take in, I said softly. But I couldn't keep lying to you. It wasn't fair. Ethan finally looked up at me, his expression a mix of pain and confusion. You're right. It's not fair. But why Oliver? Why now? I don't know, I admitted, feeling tears well up again. I didn't plan for this to happen. It just developed. I thought I could ignore it, but it kept growing, and I felt trapped. He nodded slowly, processing my words. Did you ever think about what this would do to us? To our family? His voice trembled, and I could hear the hurt behind his words. I didn't want to hurt you, Ethan, I said, my voice breaking. I was scared. Scared of losing everything we have. He sighed deeply, running a hand through his hair. You should have trusted me enough to tell me sooner. We could have faced this together. I know, and I'm so sorry, I said, feeling the weight of regret settle in my chest. I thought I could handle it, but I was wrong. I just kept pushing it down, thinking it would go away. Ethan stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the world beyond our home. I could see his shoulders tense, and my heart ached for him. What do we do now? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't know, I replied honestly. I want to fix this. I want us to be okay again. But I know it will take time. He turned to face me, his eyes filled with sadness. Time doesn't change what you've done. It doesn't take away the hurt. I know, I said, my voice trembling. But please, let's try. I love you, Ethan. I don't want to lose you. His expression softened for a moment, but the hurt was still there. Love isn't always enough, he said quietly. What you did has changed everything. I felt a knot form in my stomach. I understand. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to rebuild our trust. I'll be honest, I promise. Ethan took a deep breath, and I could see the conflict in his eyes. This will take time. I need to think about everything you've said. I can't just pretend it didn't happen. I understand, I said, feeling a mix of relief and dread. I'll give you space. Just know that I'm here, ready to talk whenever you are. He nodded slowly, his eyes still filled with pain. I appreciate that. But for now, I need to be alone. I watched as he walked away, my heart heavy with the weight of my choices. The silence that followed felt like a chasm between us, one that I knew would take time to bridge. I sat alone at the table, tears streaming down my cheeks. In that moment, I realized the path to redemption would be long and difficult. But I also understood that honesty was the first step. I had opened the door to healing, even if it was just a crack. I hoped that, somehow, we would find our way back to each other. As the sun rose higher in the sky, I felt a flicker of determination ignite within me. I knew I had to face the aftermath of my actions, but for the first time, I also felt a glimmer of hope. True love and loyalty would require us to confront the truth together, no matter how painful it may be. Share this story if you believe that love can overcome even the toughest challenges. Leave a comment about a time when honesty transformed a relationship in your life, and subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt stories like this one.